Hi, I'm Mark Hoth and welcome to Swift Almanac. Have you subscribed to the channel? Let's build that subscribers list. Have you downloaded the Swift Almanac members app? Follow the link. Okay, so in the next few weeks, we are going to be using MapKit and building Uber Assistance applications. And there's a certain control that's synonymous with Uber, and that is, you guessed it, the 5-star rating control. Now, Apple provides a version of this control in their Swift tutorial, Implement a Custom Control, but their control is for use in a storyboard, so we will develop a control that we can use for in-code placement. Let's have a look. Okay then, so we have created a single view app called 5 Star Control, and we're going to get rid of the storyboard and launch screen. And what are we going to do? We're going to set up these groups. That's our model. That is our view controllers. We are going to need an extensions folder or group. And in our extensions, we are going to create a new file, and we're going to kind of call it 5-star rating, and it's going to be of the type UI stack view. And we'll save that in there, and we've got this stack view all sorted. Then what we need to do is create a default view, get rid of a couple of error messages, and in our setup we can get rid of the main interface, and our launch screen is going to be default. And then in our app delegate, did finish launching with options. Okay, so we need to get our start screen. So we go window equals UI window frame UI screen dot main dot bounds. We go, what's these tabs? Window dot make key invisible and window dot root view controller equals view controller. That should just bring up that view controller. So let's run that. Okay, so in our view controller, under our view did load, we'll go view.background color equals dot white, and we're looking good. So we've got this 5-star rating control. The first thing we need to do is initialize it. So we go init frame, takes a CG rect, and then we'll call super.init, and we need to, of course, put an override. And then we have this required initializer. We just click on fix, and it does everything that we need. We'll get rid of that init code, and let's see. Yes. Okay, so we need to basically want to put 5 buttons inside this stack view. So we'll set up a private function called setup buttons, and we'll start off let button equals UI button, and button dot background color equals .blue. And then we need to constrain it, so we go button dot translate auto resizing mask into constraints. What a mouthful. Is equal to false. And then we want to set up a height and a width constraint for the button. So we set a height anchor constraint equal to constant of 44.0 dot is active, and we do the same with a width anchor and in our view controller we want to create a 5-star control and that's equal to 5-star rating. Let's give it a CG rect. So our X coordinate, well, who knows, let's just give it a position of 100, 100 and a width of 100 and say 60. And here we need to add a subview. For 5-star control, and if we run that, well, we're not going to get very far. Okay, so we need to fix a couple of minor things here. We need to pass frame here, and we actually need to set if is active to true, and true, and in our initialization we need to call set up buttons. Let's give this a whirl, and we need to call set up buttons here as well. And we need to pass super in it there. Okay, now that we've fixed all those problems. Okay, and then we need to add these buttons to the subview. We just go add arranged UI view is button. Now when we run it, our buttons are going to be a part of our stack, and our stack is a part of our view controller. And then we have a very ugly blue button. And you'll see that the button size is different to the 44 constraint that we've added here because we've supplied the size of our rating control. We'll sort that out later. Now, of course, these are buttons, and so we need to add a target. So when we click on it, target self, selector hash, selector, and for touch up inside, and we're going to call this rating button tapped, and we're going to need an Objective-C function rating button tapped, and for the moment we'll go print button tapped. We'll run this again. Click on our button, we get the button tapped message, so that's looking good. Okay, but with our controller, we want more than one button. So we need a couple of properties. We need to know what our rating is, and that's going to be an integer, which we're going to set to 0, and we need a variable of rating buttons, which is going to be an array of UI buttons. And to create our 5 buttons, in setup buttons, we're just going to create a for loop. To 0 less than 5, and what this will do, so I'm going to pick one button because of the size. Okay, so there's a couple of things we need to do. First, we need to add our button to our array of buttons. So rating buttons dot append button, and we need to put a space in between all of our buttons. At the moment they are right next to each other. So up here, there's in a stack view, there's a spacing, and we want to set that equal to 8. And the other thing is we want to be able to, when we touch things, we want to know that we're getting commands through. So is the user interaction enabled, and that is equal to true. I think it defaults to true anyway, because when we touched it before it was working. But just for completeness, let's put that in, and we can run it again. Now what we want to do is, rather than have these hard coded, we want some globals. So okay, spacing being int equal to 8, and we'll just change that to, well, we don't really need to change it, equals k spacing, and let our star size, let k star size equal a CG float equal to 44.0, and then down here we can put k star size and k star size. And then in our view controller, we can fill in this information so that the size of the Five-Star Rating Controller is equal to this frame here. And then when we run it, so now we've got our 5 buttons, and when we tap on them, they show us a little button tapped message. They're spaced by 8 pixels, and you can see here that the width is equal to 5 times the star size and 4 times the spacing. So it's width starts here and finishes there. and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces and obviously 5 buttons. So that will automatically resize and calculate as we need it. And to make it a bit more generic, we will also put in a variable here called star count, and we'll set that to 5. It is an integer, and then rather than have 0 to 5, we can just have star count, and you can change the value of star count. You want 3 stars, you want 6 stars, you can vary that, and it will update. So that's all good. And then in case this changes, we want to put in here a did set and call this our buttons. And for our rating equals 0, then we want to, if that changes, set up a did set, which is going to call update button selection states, which we haven't written yet. If we go down here, we're going to write update a function, update button selection states, and quite simply this just goes for index for each button in our rating buttons array dot enumerated. What we want to do is, if the button is selected, we want that to be set to the index less than our rating. Okay, so what we need to do really is change these blue objects to stars. So I've got a couple of images that I'm going to drop into our assets. And I'm going to rename one of them. So we've got our empty star, we have our filled star, and we have our highlighted star. And then for each of these, I'm going to option and drag to copy them. So we have types for each. And then our 5-star rating controller, as we're iterating through, we need to load those and set the highlight states. So here we're going button dot set image, the UI image. So the first one was empty star. Now I hate this doing this, but that's for dot normal, and then button dot set image, and the next one is what was it called? Filled. Filled star for dot selected, and then button dot set image highlighted star for dot dot highlighted. Now One of the things, the reason I don't like this is because I'm not quite sure if I was to pass this code off to someone who's doing a port for Android, I have no idea what that image is going to do. I think that's more likely supported by the compiler rather than supported by text editing. So, you know, I'm not, anyway, that's the way it is here in system, but anyway, that's the way it's done in the example, so that's why I'm doing it this way, even though I do not like it. Let's have a run of that and see what happens. Okay, so there we got our 5 empty stars, and if we click on them, well, it's still going to say button tapped, but you can see here that it goes blue when it's highlighted, but it's not actually remaining selected, so let's fix that. So when we tap on the button, what we want to do first is just make sure that everything's all cool. Rating buttons dot index of button else. So if we've got, somehow we get an index of a button that we don't actually have displayed, we have a fatal error. Button is not in the array of buttons. Probably can't happen, but better to be safe than sorry. A rating button tapped, of course, is going to have to pass us the button that we are looking for, and up here in our selector we need to have a button passed as part of our situation. Then down here, let selected rating equals index plus 1, because arrays start from 0 and we have our first item, our 1 button is there, so we need to increment to allow for that. And if selected rating equals our rating, then our rating equals 0, else rating equals selected rating. Let's try this. Now it's all good, but as you see, you need to click to do that. Now I've got a couple of little errors that we need to fix, which one of them is this sort of double update issue. So when ratings change, we're updating our selection states, but we still need to remove things. So here in setup buttons, we need to go for button in rating buttons, remove arrange subview button and button dot remove from super view, and then rating buttons dot remove all, and then down here we need to do our update button. Okay, so we've got this ugliness, so we also need to go button dot set image highlighted star when we have an array of dot highlighted and dot selected. So when that's happening, it should look a little bit prettier. So it's got rid of our ugly box that was turning up. So that's going pretty well. Okay, so that's our label that's, or our 5-star rating control. Now, as it's a user interface control, there are some accessibility things that we should be implementing, and the three things you need to implement are accessibility labels, accessibility values, and accessibility hints. And this is so people who are blind or impaired are able to still use the interface and they can hear what's going on, or etc. So to create an accessibility label in our loop here, we just type button.accessibility label, which we'll set to set index +1 star rating, and instead of having that there, we need to say for index, and that sets that label. And then we need hint strings and value strings. And if we go down to update button selection states, then down here, I'm just going to copy and paste this. For the hint string, if the rating is equal to index +1, the hint string is tapped to reset the ratings to 0, and that's what happens on our, if we tap, it goes back to 0. And the value string, if the rating is 0, is no rating set. If the value string is 1, there's 1 star set, and for the default value, then it's just rating star set. So I'll have to fix this up. And then we set the hint string and the value string. And of course, none of that is working because it is not inside the for loop. So let's put it inside the for loop. And we'll compile it and run it again. And now we have a 5-star rating, which is also accessibility friendly. And what we want to do is we want to resize or center that, and we can do that pretty simply just by going to our view controller and calculating what that X value is. It's not 100. It's can't use view. It's UI screen dot main dot bounds dot width minus the width of our control, and then pretty sure it's divided that all by 2. Let's run that and see what it looks like. Okay, so having sorted out millions of CG float to int type conversions and getting the correct brackets matched up, it is definitely the width of the screen less the length of the control divided by 2 is the left position, and as you can see, it is now it's now centered and working. There you go. Well, that's it for 5-star controls. While this control is fully functional, and it's actually the form that Uber uses in their app, there's a really nice improvement that can be made to the control, and that is the ability to slide along the stars and for them to update without removing our finger. So what you need to do currently is tap and then tap again in order to make a change. Now, if you're interested in this improved version, it will be available to members of the Swift Almanac members app if you're subscribing, which is $2 a month, and I'll upload it once we get to 300 subscribers. If you like this tutorial, then click the like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel because it's free. That's it for now. I'll be starting the next series of tutorials on MapKit, Stripe API, and Firebase. They should all be out this week. Look forward to seeing you soon. Cheers.